It's Stacy Berger here, and I'm here with my friend, with colleague, Ruthann Weeks, and we are going to be talking about a subject that I'm going to say was somewhat brand new to me not too long ago. And Ruthann is hosting an incredible event next week that I think is so important. And when she first asked me to be a speaker, I was, of course, honored and also really caused me to dive into this topic of psychological safety in the workplace. And what does that mean? And so I invited Ruthann to join me today so we could have a conversation about what psychological safety means and why it's important for us to understand it, for corporations to understand it, for organizations to understand it. So Ruthann, it's so nice to be with you today.
Thank you, Stacy. It's a pleasure. Thank you for doing the live. It's amazing.
Yeah, so let's start first of all, let's talk about what the symposium is, when it is, how people find out about it, and then we'll dive into this topic. So go ahead, Ruthann, tell us the details.
Yeah, so it's May 27th. It's running from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time with optional encouraged networking from 2 to 3:30. It's a plenary session, so there's 6 really dynamic speakers, including the illustrious Stacy Berger, and we're really going to dive into not only what psychological safety is and how to keep people safe at work and how to eliminate toxic work behaviors and workplace bullying and create those environments where people are free and safe and encouraged to express those thoughts, opinions, and ideas without any fear of reprisal. But we're going to talk about just workplace wellness. We're going to touch on mental health and what that looks like and how to support the stressed out workforce that is so prevalent right now. We're going to talk about neurological nutrition, how to create menus that really improve brain health and can have such an effect on our psychological health and safety. And also, we've got a psychologist that's speaking. Stacy, you're going to be speaking about busting those paradigms and creating that change and that transformational willingness that is so important to embracing some of these concepts. Bob Stenhouse is our opening keynote. His signature talk is The Hitman's Guide to Psychological Safety. Bob is a very dynamic speaker, and I'm so happy to call him friend and have him, in a collaborative environment with me. And he is a former RCMP undercover operative, and so he posed as a hitman. He posed as an international crime, drug dealer, I believe, and so his story is powerful, and he talks about microaggressions that he experienced while in the police service. And, he was a high profile whistleblower at the time and experienced a lot of workplace abuse in relation to that in that environment. And now his story is so powerful. And I find when really strong men share their story, it gives other strong men permission to do the same. And and I'm going to talk about culture and leadership. And I'm really dialing into how we build teams with intention towards what kind of culture we want to build in our workplace. So yeah, it's going to be a great event. So you can go to my website, harmonyintheworkplace.com. Right on the homepage, there's a link to register. And otherwise, yeah, we're going to put the link in the tab or in the comment section below as well.
Okay, so that was a lot, Ruthann.
I know. So where do you want to dive in?
It's going to be a jam-packed day, obviously. So let's talk about the person who should attend this. So is it the person who's right now maybe in a toxic work environment where they're wondering, what's my next step? Is this leadership who's going, you know what, my employees are stressed out. How do I manage this new work environment where we're online working and virtual teams? Like who is this best suited for?
I would love to have decision makers in the room, those that have the ability to actually go to their organizations and implement some of the things we're going to talk about. I mean, this is a 1 day event where it's obviously a high level view, but what the beauty of it is that everyone that I'm presenting at the event and bringing to the participants has something to offer to help improve the workplace. So HR, health and safety, supervisors, business leaders, government, unions, associations. I know it's a broad spectrum, but the people in the room are going to be those that are curious about it. They recognize that it's something they need to be paying attention to. They want to expand their awareness around what it is, and they've got, like I say, that transformational willingness to actually take what they learn and implement it in their workplace.
Absolutely. And that transformational willingness is really key, right? It's how many times have we attended a seminar, a workshop, a 1 day event and gone back to work and things just go back to the way they were. And what you're really talking about is how do we create that organizational change? And I know, I've been out of the corporate world for a while now. So spent 16 years kind of climbing that corporate ladder, was in an executive position at the end of my career. It's been a long time since I've been in that environment. And I have to tell you, within that span, I never heard the term psychological safety like this. And so when you talk about psychological safety, what does that term even mean?
First of all, I want to tell you, I'm not in love with the name because it's not clear about what it means. People hear psychological safety and they think mental health, which is a component of it, but certainly not what it means. Or they think it just means being nice. And being nice in the workplace can actually be a thin veneer of toxicity, covering up toxicity. So, what psychological safety is, it's creating an environment where people are encouraged to bring their whole selves to work, where they are free and safe and encouraged to share thoughts, to express ideas, to report near misses and mistakes without any fear of reprisal, just for the process of learning and improving efficiencies and correcting those mistakes and putting processes in place so those mistakes aren't repeated. And what happens is when people have that freedom in interpersonal risk taking to be themselves, to bring their whole selves to work, innovation reigns, efficiencies are consistently improved upon. That next big great idea for your business may come from the least expected source, and it's really opening up those lines of communications and providing that environment where those baby ideas can be expressed. I mean, we say that there's no dumb ideas, but who has ever heard a dumb idea? I mean, I've heard a dumb idea. I've been at meetings where I've expressed something, in a brainstorming session that I quite quickly realized wouldn't work for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But I wasn't beat up for expressing it. I wasn't chastised for making the comment. And when you have that level of freedom and interpersonal risk taking, that's where the magic happens.
Well, and it's where the creative energy is, like you said. And the other thing though that I heard you say that's really important is it's creating an environment where it's safe to share those ideas. It doesn't mean that every idea we come to the table with is going to be implemented. It doesn't mean we're all sitting around, being really positive and that a girl, right? It's not. It's so much deeper than just like you said, that veneer. There's a real safety where I can be my whole self, where I can show up. And I share this story often, but I remember sitting around many boardroom tables, and I was young when I was promoted to management. I mean, I was in my early mid 20s, and oftentimes the only female, not always, but oftentimes the only female. And I remember so many times having an idea and just keeping my mouth shut because I didn't want to be ridiculed. And it was, I would say, a fairly safe environment, but just that fear of judgment and ridicule. And I would often leave those meetings and go, you know what, that was a damn good idea. And the organization missed out, and I missed out because I didn't share it. And they may have taken it or not, but it was a real missed opportunity. And in the coaching that I do, I believe so much in that full spectrum success. When your employees are doing good at home, when they're feeling good in their health, they show up to work differently. They show up to work better. And
Yeah.
so that full spectrum success has such a positive impact on organizations and companies. And like you said, that productivity, that efficiency, because when we're feeling great, we show up great. But if it's not safe to be at work, and we feel like we've got to sequester part of us and we can't be vulnerable, then you know what? We also take that home. And we're
Yeah.
not showing up as our best selves at home. So it's such a big, big topic, Ruthann.
Yeah, it is. And you bring up a couple of points. I think when we do seek input from employees, it's really important to include that caveat that we can't promise that every idea will be adopted, but we want you to know that we value your opinion. Because nobody wants to have their opinion asked for and then completely ignored. So I think we need to set the premise for that asking, first of all, and that engagement, and let them know, that, and maybe it will be adopted down the line. It depends on, resources, time, climate, a whole bunch of things. But they need to know that they have a venue to be heard.
Yeah.
And the other thing about that is, Stacey, I think you are absolutely right. I think there are many, many people in the workplace that are operating below their potential. I know there are, because they don't feel like they have the support to grow and learn and bring their whole selves to work. And absolutely. And how much is that costing employers, right? And when we have that environment in play, and we're in this social shift right now that we've been in it for a number of years, and this COVID disruption has just accelerated everything. Everything is in a height of elevation right now. And we're in this social shift, and the organizations that can get this right and provide that level of support to their employees are going to have a competitive advantage in the 21st century. We're moving in more and more all the time into a global economy. And the talent takers of the 21st century will be those people that get this right, because there's another thing to consider as well. Generationally, millennials and Gen Z are less tolerant to put up with a toxic status quo that some of us, older workers may have endured. And I'm very passionate about teaching them what their employee rights are and what their employer responsibilities are. And they don't need me to tell them. They know they'll work very hard for organizations that support the things that they support, and that embrace things that are important to them, like we used to talk about work-life balance. Well, now it's just life balance, because those lines are blurred more than ever. And those people are also influencers for your business, either positively or negatively.
Well, and we all know this at some level. Let me say it that way. A company is nothing without its people, right? It's four walls and maybe some chairs and some computers. But until you put people into it, we don't have a company. And so how we treat our people, how our people are performing, how they're feeling at work, that's our number one asset. That's our number one resource. And so if we don't get that right, we're, like you said, we're just not operating at peak performance. And I think sometimes what can happen when we're talking about mental health, and I think not just mental health, but companies, and we talk about environmental impact, and And you know what? I think organizations and leadership can often feel like they're getting their finger wagged at them, and you have to, and you need to,
Yeah.
and you know what? That can be really overwhelming. And so I know you believe this too, Ruth Ann, but I believe in so much in coming from a place of vision. What kind of organization do you want to lead? What kind of people do you want to have working for you? And how do you want them to feel about their jobs? And so this isn't about here's everything you're doing wrong, go fix it. But hey, where do you want to be as an organization? And what kind of leader do you want to be? And let's create a vision for that. And then go take some of the information you gather at the symposium or bring somebody like Ruthann in. And now, how do we move more towards that vision? And it doesn't have to be this like real critical, ooh, look at everything you're doing wrong and let's be ashamed of that, right?
No, no, and it's just the opposite, as a matter of fact. I think, just to talk about these times that we're in right now, I think it's given everybody on the planet just um, an occasion to pause and really reflect on what is important. And right now we know strong internet is important. But we also know that that connection piece is really important because we've been missing that, right? And I absolutely believe to my core that every single business owner wants to do the right thing. Sometimes they just don't know how. So, when I work with an organization, we absolutely start with that vision, like you're saying. What are your core values, and are you setting up your organization to embrace those core values? And so you start with that end in mind, and then you kind of evaluate where you're at, celebrate those wins, because everybody's doing a bunch of great stuff and doing it right, but there are always ways that can be improved. And I think a lot of times business leaders, they aren't even aware sometimes of some of the more toxic influences that could be happening without their awareness. And I think, once those come into awareness, that they're absolutely wanting to correct that. Everybody, wants the best for their people.
Yeah. Well, and we've got blind spots, and by definition, we can't see our blind spots. And that's why we need that outside perspective to be able to identify, hey, are you aware of this? And to show us what we can't see for ourselves. And that's why having those outside experts is so key, because if we want to keep growing, there's going to be some behavior changes that needs to happen. And we don't always know, like you said, where to start. And sometimes it feels so big and so overwhelming that can be paralyzing. And so it ends up as a project on the back burner instead of something we just start with. So
yeah, and there's the Mental Health Commission of Canada has implemented 13 optional psychosocial factors that make up make up psychological safety in the workplace. And I'm going to talk about those in my talk. And again, really high level stuff, but it's things like recognition and reward, setting people up to recognize them for their hard work and their contribution, but also to reward them in a way that resonates with them. One employee might really love that $1,000 bonus at the end of the year. Another might rather have 3 extra personal days to use throughout the year. Someone else might want, a gift card or something like that. So
or just to be told they're doing a good job.
Yeah, and just have that recognition. So that's one of them. Incivility and respect. Incivility is just kind of a fancy word for speaking in a rude or abrupt manner. And it can quickly turn into a bullying type of environment if it's left unchecked. And it leads people not only playing small, but it affects engagement and it affects productivity. So there's methods, and they're not difficult, like those things I just talked about. I mean, civility and respect, that might be a process if it's an environment that has more of a culture that allows that. But recognition and reward, implement, giving people a choice on how they receive rewards, and just being intentional about recognizing when someone's contributing, and everybody is a contributor, is fairly easy to implement and doesn't have to be expensive or an onerous task.
Yeah. But again, can feel overwhelming if we don't have somebody to say, no, here's the step, here's the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk about this all day, Ruthann. My passion is people. My passion is people living on purpose and living into their full potential. And so that's why I just love what you're doing. And they say that the feedback is the breakfast of champions. And I think that's what we're really talking about, right? Is someone holding up the mirror to us and saying, okay, where can I do better? And I want to do better in order to produce greater results for the organization, for my employees, for myself. And here's some real simple ways to get started doing that. And yeah, so one more time, again, we could talk about this all day, which we will be doing next week. So daytime, where to register?
Next Thursday, May 27th, runs from 9 till 3:30. Let's just build in that networking because we want as many people to stay as possible for that. And yeah, you can register on my website, harmonyintheworkplace.com. It's right there on my events tab or on my homepage. And yeah, we'll also include the registration link either in the copy for this video or in the first comment below. And we really hope you can join us. And if you know anyone else who should be at the table, please invite them as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for doing this important work in the world, Ruthann. Thanks for having me as part of the conference, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for this, Stacy, and thank you for your important work in the world as well. I'm very fortunate to have you in my tribe.
Oh, thanks, Ruthann.
Okay, take care.